how to fill out a landlord gas safety check, CP12 as some people will call it. My name's Hart, and today I'm back at the National Gas Centre for Excellence, and I'm back with Michael, and Michael's going to go through how to fill out a landlord gas safety sheet. This is a question that's been asked a few times. We did a video recently on the duties of a landlord, or what landlords need to cover on each year, but we got quite a few questions on how to fill one of these out correctly. So in this video today, it's quite a long video today, but Michael's going to go through how to fill it out, and then we're going to go to the appliances, and we're going to go through the appliances, and we're going to show you some of the things on the appliances that you would need to check when you do a landlord gas safety check. And then Michael's just come in and just interrupted the video. That's fine, I'm not going to cut this, we're going to keep this in. So yeah, if you've got any questions, as always, please put them in comments below, and thumbs up if you can, really appreciate that. Without further ado, let's go over to Michael.
Thank you, Alan. A bit of a tongue-in-cheek video today. On the back of the Landlord's duties video that we've done recently, we've received a number of people asking questions about what is the correct way of filling out a CP12 or a landlord or homeowner's safety record. Now, most engineers complete these documents most days. First of all, I'm sure the vast majority of engineers out there are doing it correctly. However, if there is a little bit of confusion, this video should serve as a means of sort of addressing how one should be completed, because there is a correct way to complete a CP12 document. So what is a CP12? Any document that was around at the time of Corgi was called a Corgi Performer document, which is what CP stands for. CP12 is just the form that correlates to a landlord or homeowner's safety record. Now, we're going to complete a document today. We're going to use a fictional scenario. So we're at Mrs. Smith's house again, and Mrs. Smith has a Buster 30i, and she also has a cooker. Now, Mrs. Smith rents the property from a landlord, and the cooker is her own appliance. So the idea behind this is we're going to see how we would also register tenants' own appliances that aren't really covered by the landlord. So you'll be able to see, we'll put the video down, and we'll put a picture of the document down on the screen so you can see what I'm filling out as I'm doing it. And then we'll also show you what we're testing on the appliance. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to draw your attention to the first section, which is the gas installer's details, or gas engineer's details. Now, this is just the section of the form whereby we're registering who it is who's carrying out this inspection, who the responsible person who the responsible engineer is. Now, again, we've used a fictional company's name. So the company's, my name is Alan Hart Limited. And obviously we've used Alan's name as the engineer. Now, it's probably worth noting at this point that the registration number and the engineer number are fictional as well. So any unscrupulous engineers who want to go out and use Alan's details, unfortunately you can't. Feel free to use the details on this form if you like, but I don't think it's going to get you very far. So the address is quite straightforward. Number 1, Gas Street, Leeds. Postcode, again, self-explanatory. And telephone number, we've put the centre's number in so that if anybody ever wants to call the centre and for any training requirements, you're more than welcome to do so. That number is 01924 973 260. Now, things to note on the time of issue, or the date of issue, sorry, always use the full digits, if you like. So for the date in the month, so the day, don't just put 1, put 01. If it's the 3rd, put 03. The reason why is because we need to bear in mind that there are people out there who will try and amend your documents. So you need to protect yourself from that as an engineer. So therefore, if it's the 1st of the 3rd, put 01-03. That way, nobody can go and add a 1 before the 1st, or a 2. You can't change the numbers. Time of issue is really important for obvious reasons. If you put the time as 12 o'clock and something goes wrong at 1 o'clock, then you may be questioned as to what you did while you were there. An engineer's name, again, self-explanatory, we put Alan Hart down. The next box that we come to as an engineer is the tenant or homeowner's details. Now, I've put my name down. I am the tenant, and the address is National Gas Centre for Excellence, Featherstone, WF76NX, and again, we put the centre's number there should you need it. Now, there is a box also that says, is the tenant or homeowner present during this inspection? Now, we've circled yes because I'm here. However, you may come across situations whereby there's nobody there. It could be a void property. You could be working for a social housing provider and it's a void property, in which case I would be tempted to put the name down as void. That's the tenant, void property. Put the address down as it should be. Now, the landlord or agent details, it says next to it, if applicable. So when would this not be applicable? So you may notice that a CP12 is not just a landlord safety inspection, it can also be a homeowner's safety inspection. Now, homeowners are required to get safety inspections done if they're selling the house. There can be a multitude of things. It could just be a diligent homeowner who wants to get their appliances inspected and the car inspected every year. That's perfectly fine. If that's the case, you would literally just leave this section blank or put a line through it, even better to stop anybody doing anything in the future. So that takes us through the first three boxes. So up to now we've covered who the engineer is, who the responsible person at the for carrying out the inspection is, what's the tenant's details, and also what's the landlord's details. If it was a tenanted property, the landlord's full details would go in there as well. There is also a box that asks, is the landlord present at the time of inspection? It's just a simple yes or no answer. I would presume that most of the time the landlord's not going to be present for a landlord gas safety inspection. So now we're into the nitty gritty. Now we're into the part of the form where we're testing and recording details that are there. You know, it's a binding document. You're completing this information for it to be used. Now, our first appliance is a tenant's own appliance. Is a landlord's appliance. So this is our Worcester 30i. Worcester 30i boiler, and it's located in the kitchen. So as with all appliances, the first thing we're asked is, where is the location? We're going to say kitchen. If it was in a utility, you put utility. If it was in a cupboard upstairs, it would be boiler compartment or whatever it may be. The next thing we're asked for is the make. Really straightforward again. Ours is a Worcester. If it was a backseat, it'd be a backseat. Ideal would be ideal. Whatever it may be, you know, whatever the manufacturer, you will put that manufacturer's name in that box. Model, ours is a 30i ERP. Try and be as particular as you can with that box. So don't just put 30i, there's many different models. Make sure you put the right model down. Type, boiler. Cooker, fire, hob, whatever it may be, that's what the type of the appliance is. Flue type, flueless, room sealed, open flued. Again, you can put closed flued if it was a LPG appliance, if it was a fire, sorry. There's a multitude of things that you can put in there, but generally the vast majority of the time it's going to be room sealed, open flued or flueless, and we abbreviate that to RS, FL or OF. Now, after that, it asks us, most forms will ask for either an operating pressure or heat input. Now, this form in particular asks for both, so we're going to record both. However, most forms only ask for either or. The requirements of an engineer is to provide either or. We're going to do both because the form asks for it. However, you would either provide an operating pressure or a heat input or gas rate. Now, our operating pressure on a 30i, when we've done it, and we're going to show you in a minute on when we've done it in the test itself, was 18 millibar. Now that 18 millibar was at the inlet of the gas valve. Now on a Worcester 30i, there's a lot of speculation, and this is going to be, I'm sure there'll be a number of people who comment on this. People will say, you can go down to 16.5 millibar on a Worcester. You can't. It's wrong. That's a myth in the industry. What we do need to be aware of is that the gas reg state, we have a working pressure at the meter. In our case, our working pressure at the meter was 20 millibar. We then allowed 1 millibar drop between the meter and the appliance working pressure. So if we take that off, max loss across the pipework, 1 millibar, so 20 minus 1 gives us 19 millibar. Now, Worcester state that you are allowed a further 1.5 millibar loss through the inlet to the gas valve. That takes us down to 17.5. So our gas rate needs to be, so our working pressure at the gas valve on the boiler needs to be above 17.5. Where the 16.5 thing comes into play is if you had a working pressure at the meter of 19 millibar, because our working pressure, as we know, is 21 millibar plus or minus 2. So the lowest it can be at the meter is 19 millibar. 19 minus your 1 is 18, minus your 1.5 is 16.5. That's where that comes in. If you've got 20 millibar working pressure at the meter, you can't have 16.5 millibar working pressure at the boiler. It's undergassed if that's the case. And all of our gas installation pipework and all your manufacturing instructions all state that pipework must comply to the relevant British standard. So we've got 18 millibar, which is more than 17.5, which is required, so we're okay. 18 millibar goes in our operating pressure box. Heat input is our gas rate. Now, depending on the appliance, your gas rate will be given to you in either gross or net. If it's given to you in gross, then that's fine. You take your heat input or your gas rate in gross. However, we need to be quite particular. A lot of people look at the likes of a 30i and think instantly it's a 30 kilowatt appliance. We need to look at the benchmark. We need to look at the data badge on the boiler. On the actual boiler, we know that the Worcester 30i asks for it in net, and the actual heat input is 30.64 kilowatts. Now, we're allowed a tolerance of plus 5% or minus 10%. So we're looking for anything around that. So our gas rate, we've done it over 2 minutes. When we started, we had a reading of 5 numbers. Then after the decimal point, we had 001. After 120 seconds or 2 minutes, we then had a reading of 0.106. So the amount of gas that was burnt over that 2 minute period was 0.105 meters cubed. So again, a quick calculation for a gas rate. We've got 3,600, which is the number of seconds in 1 hour, never changes, it's always the same. The relevant burn, which in our case is 0.105, times by the calorific value of gas, 10.76. Now what that 10.76 means is if you had 1 meter cubed of gas and burnt it, you would get 10.76 kilowatts out of it. Once you've multiplied them 3 together, you then divide the total by 120. That's the number of seconds that you've done the test over. If you find that during the test, as you get to 120 seconds, the dial is between 2 numbers, just allow it a couple of seconds to get to the next number and then just adjust this. So if this becomes 122 or 123, that's fine. You'll get a more accurate reading if you do that. That will give you kilowatts gross. If your appliance MIs or the data badge gives you a heat input in gross, you can just use this number, that's fine. However, our appliance asks for it in net. So what we need to do is take that 33.89 kilowatts and divide it by 1.11. That gives us 30.54 kilowatts net, which is in between our 30.64 plus 5 or minus 10, so within our tolerance, so that's fine. So that's great. In our heat input kilowatt, I've put 30.54 net. It's important for me, in my opinion, it's really important to put net in there because it just is more information and it doesn't take much for you to give that information. Safety devices. Are the safety devices operable? So what we're talking about here is flame supervision devices and other safety devices as well. The flame supervision device on our Worcester 30i is it's flame rectification. So what we would do is we would isolate the gas and we would check that the boiler eventually goes to lockout. It might take a couple of attempts, but it will eventually go to lockout. If that happens, we've proved that our safety device is working fine. Adequate ventilation. So we've got a room sealed appliance. It doesn't need any ventilation. Some appliances do need it. Some room sealed appliances do need it in ventilation if they're in a compartment. However, again, refer to manufacturer's instructions. CO alarm fitted. Now in Scotland the regulations are different to the UK, so different to England. So in England we don't necessarily need a CO alarm fitted with every gas appliance. So in this case there's no CO alarm fitted next to our boiler. So therefore we've just put a dash. You can put NA, you can put anything you like. Flue flow test. We don't have to do a flue flow test with a boiler, with a room sealed appliance. So therefore, again, NA or dash. Spillage test. Again, we don't need to do a spillage test. So NA or dash. If it was a fire or whatnot, you would carry out these tests, and you simply put pass or fail depending on what you found. Termination satisfactory. So what would be included in this part of the test would be inspecting the flue throughout its length. So our boiler has, if it was a simple horizontal flue, you'd go outside, you'd inspect it, you'd be making sure it's not damaged, it's not, it's got the correct clearances, it's not, it hasn't got any sort of growth around it, it meets the regulations as for when it was fitted. It's bracketed, all that kind of thing as well. Visual condition. Now that's a visual condition of the appliance. That would be an inspection. What we're doing there is we're having a quick look around, we're making sure that there's no evidence of scorching, no evidence of damage to it, there's no evidence that there's anything wrong with the appliance there. Combustion performance reading. Now some forms give you an initial and a final. Now the initial reading is what you take when you first carry out the test. Now the final reading would be after a service or after you've done anything to the appliance. So if you've tested, if you're just there to do a safety inspection and you're not servicing the appliance, you would either put the same reading for both, or you would leave the final, you put NA in the final and just have the initial one in. However, in this case, when we've done our performance reading and then we've taken a ratio, it's 0.0006, which is fine. Appliance safe to use, yes, there's nothing that we've identified thus far that would say that our appliance isn't safe to use. Is it a landlord's appliance? Yes. And inspected? Yes. So that's fine. The next appliance we're going to check is the tenant's own cooker. Now, as we know and as we discussed, there's no requirement for us to inspect a tenant's own appliance. So therefore, what we're going to do, and this is best practice, would be to go through the same initial boxes. So location, ours is in the kitchen. Make, it's Beko. Model, DG584. Type, cooker, or abbreviated to CKR. Flue type, it's flueless, so we've put FL. After that, what we've done is we've drawn a line through some boxes and written visual inspection only, and then another line up to the point where we've got landlord's own appliance, where we put no. And then where it says inspected, we've put no. It's just a visual inspection only. Another really important thing that I've always done, but I know a lot of engineers don't, is after I've noted all of my appliances on a form, I always put under it the letters NOA. Now what that means is no other appliances. The reason I do that is because I've seen examples in the past where engineers have maybe listed 2 appliances, and then maybe an unscrupulous tenant has decided to try and add their own appliance under it. Now, yeah, if the engineer has retained a copy of the certificate, which he should, he'll have proof that that wasn't there at the time of the inspection. However, it's always best to help yourself by putting either no other appliances or, as I do, NOA. That just protects you. It's another form of covering your backside, for lack of a better phrase. So, other things that we need to note is any details of faults. So when we've done our inspection, the fault that was identified, that there was no bonding to the outlet of the meter. Now, this used to be classed as not to current standards, and it still is. Not to current standards is still a thing. It's just how you are required to deal with it. So now, not to current standards are advisory, and they can just be verbal advisories. However, again, these certificates are there to cover your backside in case something ever goes wrong. So therefore, I always still note not to current standards. You don't have to, but my advice to you guys would be still continue to record not to current standards. I've put no bonding to meter outlet, advisory-NCS, details of work carried out, dash or NA, and then label or warning notice issued, no. If you identified an unsafe situation, what you would do is you would detail the fault. So for example, unclipped pipework, remedial action taken, isolate, if it was at risk 2 or whatever, you you wouldn't have to isolate, so you just put advisory at risk 2, AR2, and then details of work carried out, advise customer to have rectified, whatever it may be, label and warning notice that's issued. If it was something that required a label to be issued, like at risk 1 or ID, then yes. If it's not, for at risk 2, you don't have to attach a label, so therefore no. So yeah, that's how you would use that section of the form. The other boxes that we have, on the bottom left, you can see a series of questions. Now the first question is, outcome of a gas installation pipework visual inspection. That's something that we should be doing at the start of every single job that we go to. Not just an inspection. I always talk to our trainees and I always suggest that you have a conversation as well before you do anything. Is there any smells of gas that we need to be aware of? Are all the appliances working safely? Is there anything I need to know about? Is there any work that you've had done recently? If all of that's okay, pass. If you've gone round and looked and you haven't identified anything, it's a pass. Outcome of the gas supply pipework visual inspection. Now that's something I've noticed it's on this form, but it's not on a lot of others. So your supply pipework is pipework coming in. Now generally speaking, all you're going to see is what's coming in before the ECV. So that's all you can inspect. Just inspect that pipework. Is it secure? Is it showing any signs of distress or anything? Although you're not responsible for that because it's the gas supplier's side of the meter, if you're on the side of the ECV, that is something that it's asking you to record. So have a look at it. If there's everything looks okay with it, pass. Yeah. Is the emergency control valve access satisfactory? So what it's saying is, can we access the ECV? We've all been to properties where we haven't been able to access the ECV. It's been, you know, locked away or whatever. So in this case, yeah, it's fine. If not, it would be fail, and then you would put in the details of any faults, what the reason was, and then categorise it as per the unsafe situations procedure. Outcome of a tightness test. Now this landlord in particular has asked us to carry out a tightness test as part of the inspection. So we've charged accordingly and we've done a gas tightness test and it was fine. So we've recorded that. However, if the landlord doesn't want you to do a tightness test, there's no requirement on you to do one as part of a landlord CP12. Is the protective potential bonding satisfactory? Now we've already identified it's not because it's non-existent. So what we've done is we've put fail and we've advised the customer that they need to have it rectified by a competent electrician. That's those boxes pretty much filled out. The next thing is the safety record, a box that says, is the safety record issued, sorry, this safety record is issued by the gas installer, that's the engineer, that's your signature, and received on behalf of the landlord or homeowner, delete as applicable. Yeah, that was me, so I've signed that. And then you circle what it is, homeowner or whatever it may be. Number of appliances tested. Now remember, we've put 1 on this form, however, there's 2 appliances listed. That's because we've only inspected or tested 1, because 1 of them was just a visual inspection, so we put 1 down. The date, again, double digits, 010322, and then there's also a box that says the next safety check is due by. It's a date from the day you do the inspection, 1 year from the date you do the inspection. So in this case, the next inspection is required by the 1st of the 3rd, 2023. Now, the next thing we need to do now, once we've completed our form and it's all been signed and it's a completed document, is we have the white, which is retained by the landlord. You give that to the landlord, or if it's a letting agency or whatever it may be, you give them that. The green is something for you to retain. You keep the green copy and you keep that filed away somewhere. And then the pink is given to the tenant. If it's a homeowner, I will be giving them both the white and the pink, and I will be keeping the green. And that's pretty much it in terms of how we fill out this document. Now, what we're going to do now is go over, well, we've already done it, we've already filmed it, so we're going to go to that footage now, and we're going to show you what tests we actually carried out on the boiler. Thank you. Worcester 30i in a kitchen. I've already come into the property. I've asked Mrs. Smith, is there anything that I need to be aware of? Everything's fine. Nothing's been changed since the last time I was here last year. So basically what I'm going to do now is inspect this appliance. So whenever we inspect an appliance, again, we're talking about our 26.9 checks. Now the easiest way to remember them is FAGs. Flue, air, gas, safety. FAGs. So at the start, we'll talk about F, flue. As you can appreciate, this is a gas training centre, so how our flues are configured is different to how it would be out in the mainstream, in the world. So we're going to imagine this flue is just a standard horizontal flue. It's fine. So we're happy that the flue's okay. We would also go out and check the termination. Are we happy with it? Yes, we are. That's great. A, ventilation. This is a room sealed appliance. It doesn't require any ventilation, not even for cooling purposes. It's absolutely fine. So the ventilation is fine. We're okay with it. That's F and A ticked off. G, gas. So straight away, we're into gas rating and we're into operating pressures. Now, again, you don't have to do both, but our form asks for both, so we're going to do both. I've already done the gas rate. It's rated at 30.54 kilowatts net, so I'm quite happy with that. The benchmark on the boiler states it needs 30.64, so that's within tolerances. 10% under, 5% over, that's fine. And then we're going to do an operating pressure. So because we've got 20 millibar at our working pressure of the meter, we're then going to lose 1 across the pipework maximum, which takes it down to 19, and then we're allowed a further 1.5 millibar between this point and the gas valve, which takes us down to 17.5. Our operating pressure must be above 17.5. So let's do that. Let's see what we're getting. So I've put the appliance into max. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch for it to go into high fire, and then we're going to see what reading we get on the multimeter, on the manometer. And again, it's got to be above 17.5 millibar. That 17.5 millibar again is dictated by what we get working pressure at the meter. That's the only thing it's dictated by. There's a misconception that allowed 16.5 because it's a Worcester. It's wrong. So the boiler's fired up. It hasn't started to go revving itself up to max rate yet, so give it a couple of seconds. There we go. And we are at 18 millibar. That's fine. 18 millibar is fine. It's above 17.5, which is the minimum it's allowed to be for us. That's fine. That's the gas supply ticked off. So now we've done F, we've done A, and we've done G. The last thing we need to do is our Alan, can you pass me the terminal screwdriver, mate? It's in that bag there. You might have to edit that out.
We'll leave it in.
There you go.
Bravo.
Yeah. Swap.
There you go. I'll help you with these videos.
So I've now removed the manometer, and I've sealed up the gas test point. I'm going to give it a spray, make sure it's not bubbling. That's fine. Good stuff. So now we've done that. We've ticked off F, we've ticked off A, we've ticked off G. Last thing we're going to do is our safety devices. So in this case, flame rectification. So we're going to turn the demand for heat on, boiler's fired up, and then all we're going to do is we're going to turn off the gas. So our boiler's now trying to fire up. That's one failed attempt. And what this boiler will do is it'll try 5 attempts. It's quite a lengthy process, so we'll probably cut that out, to be honest, until it goes to failure. But the point is, it will fail. Again, it's trying to light. It's not lighting because we've isolated the gas. Eventually, this flame supervision device will go to lockout, and that's fine. That's it. That's it tested. It takes ages for this to go to lockout, doesn't it? Sorry?
Do that back in?
Can do it. So now we can see it's gone to EA fault ionisation. That means that the boiler, and it's identified that there's no flame present and it's locked. The flame supervision device is activated. it's identified, there's no flame there, so it's cut off the supply and gone to lockout. So now we've carried out the majority of our tests and we're getting ready to finish the inspection. You've got your case on the boiler now. This is a great time to do our combustion flue analysis. Some manufacturers will state that you don't have to do it with the case on. However, as with any test, it's always best to test in working conditions. Now, you don't leave the property and take the case off the boiler, do you? So the case is on the boiler for the vast majority of its life. So therefore, that's how we want to test it. So you'll notice on many boilers, there's two ports. One of the ports is the inner flue, so the part of the flue that's taking our products of combustion away. Now, what we would do is, and again, you'd refer to manufacturer's instructions, you would allow the appliance to heat up for 10 minutes, put it on maximum rate. Using your flue gas analyzer, put your probe in, take the measurements and the readings within the inner flue. Now, as a ratio, as a rule, we're looking for anything on a boiler like this, relatively modern with a zero governor, etc. We're looking for a reading of less than 0.004. Anything more than that requires some form of intervention to try and bring it below, whether that be a service, whether it be parts replaced, whether it be issues with the flue. But we can't leave it at that, basically. CO parts per million, again, it's manufacturer specific. I've seen some manufacturers and some appliances have acceptable readings up to 300 parts per million. However, that's down to the manufacturer to tell you what is an acceptable reading, and it will be in the MIs. Another point to note, the other port on the flue, if there's one there, is for the outer flue, the air intake. Now, the reason for this is to check flue integrity. Now, what that means is, if you've got a long flue, or if you've got a flue that might cover some considerable distance, then what we need to be able to check is that there's no break in it. There's no part of that flue where products of combustion are being able to enter that flue. So it could be that there's a seal deteriorated within the inner flue or whatnot. But basically, we need to take a reading of the air being drawn into the appliance at the point of the appliance. Outside in fresh air, 20.9 is what we get in terms of oxygen and air, oxygen levels, O2 readings. So when we check at the appliance, generally 20.6 is what's deemed as an appropriate reading. Anything above that, really. It can be affected by traffic, fumes in the area. In industrial areas, you might get poorer air quality, that kind of thing. But the point of this second port is to allow you to be able to deem the integrity of the flue and the flue integrity to be okay. Again, manufacturer specific. On a service or an inspection, some manufacturers will state that you must check that. Some won't. It depends on the manufacturer. As a general rule, if I'm doing an inspection and there's a point there for me to test it, I will. Especially if my combustion flue analysis readings on my inner flue and my products of combustion are quite high, or you've got high CO readings, that's an indication that there's the air quality coming into the appliance might not be great. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm not demonstrating on this boiler, is because we did try, but because we've only got a couple of radiators tied into this circuit, it quickly reached maximum temperature and cut out, so we weren't able to do it. You can do it in hot water, however, it is always best to do it in max fire, because hot water does modulate as well, depending on how many outlets you've got and your flow rate through the boiler, etc. So that's pretty much it. We're gonna have a look at some of at the meter as well, and also the tenant's own appliance, which is the cooker, and we'll do an inspection on that, a visual inspection. So when we look at a meter, what are we looking for? So before we do a tightness test, we do a visual inspection. Visual inspection of the whole gas carcass, the whole system, if you like. We ensure that cooker lids are in the up position, and any appliance pilots are extinguished and switched off, so that they're not going to start firing up, or they're not going to create an illusion where we think we've got a pressure loss when we haven't. Inspections on the meter, it's always important to start at the inlet. So our ECV, what are we looking for in the ECV? Well, we're looking that it falls to the off position. What that means is, as it falls, it stops there. It doesn't continue to fall back to on. Or in some cases, that might be how it's on, and then you've got to turn it off that way. But then if it was a loose ECV, it'll just fall to on. So this ECV is fine, it falls to the off positions, that's fine. Label, that label should actually be there, indicating how we operate the ECV, off, on. Meter flex or anaconda, whatever you may call it. Not sure any signs of distress. It used to be that generally we didn't really like 90-degree bends on this, but to be fair, it's fine as it is. Then we come to our meter regulator. This tab, this little anti-tamper tab, we make sure that it's intact, it hasn't been cut, indicating nobody's been in messing around with the meter, the diaphragm. Meter secure, bracketed. Anti-tamper nuts are missing on this meter. Usually the case when we go out into the field and see it in someone's house. Very rarely do we see anti-tamper nuts in place. However, I used to make a note of these on every job if they were missing. I still do if I can, where possible. But it tends to be that more often than not they are missing nowadays. Meter, label on the front, 0800 111 999 should indicate who owns the meter, who the property is, emergency service provider details. Meter outlet, bonding, missing, should be within 600mm and before the first T and at least of 10mm diameter. So that's the issue, that's what we'd be looking for in terms of faults with the meter. After that we carry on with our tightness test. So tightness let bite between 7 and 10 for 1 minute, stabilisation 20 to 21 for 1 minute, and then tightness 20 to 21 for 2 minutes. And that's it for that's all you do at the meter. We're now going to have a look at the cooker and carry out a visual inspection on that and go through what we would be expected to do as part of our visual inspection. So visual inspection on a tenant's own appliance. What do you need to check? Visual inspection should include location, first of all. Is the location suitable? Does it have the right clearances? Does it have the right, is it in a place that it's allowed to be? Has it got the space around it needs? Flue, really easy with a cooker. It's just a visual inspection. In this case, it hasn't got a flue, so it's quite easy. If it was a fire, I would be tempted to be doing a flue flow test, if it was me. Ventilation, so we'd refer to our flueless ventilation chart. We would see what the volume of the room is, what we need in terms of ventilation for this appliance. In this case, we don't need any ventilation for this appliance, so we're okay. Then what we would be doing is looking at stability. So stability, is it okay? Yeah, seems it. It's got a cooker chain, it's got a stability bracket. We're okay with this appliance. And then lastly, it's a best practice. You can light the appliance and check that the flame picture's okay. You don't have to go into anything further than that. That's pretty much it. And from that perspective, that's your visual inspection done.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. I hope this video has been of some use to you. For anybody who's still watching, I realise this is quite a long video. We have tried to cover as much as we possibly can. Obviously these videos take a lot of time and effort to do. Just the editing alone takes quite a long time. So as always, if you can put a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. If you can put a comment below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Yeah, thanks very much.